with all that's going on, we're talking about this intersection between old media and new media. Megan and Tiffany, you both sit in old media, if you will, in the sense of working with the television news network and one of the largest print news publications in the United States, if not in the world. And Shahid, you have been a pioneer at looking at new media. What I want to start out with is a few minutes from each of you about your broad observations, or specific, if you so choose, about how the landscape has changed during your own career. What is changing? How is new media falling into this? And is it real change that we're seeing? Is it fundamentally changing what the work that you do, or is it more noise than substance, perhaps? And so let's start there, and Tiffany, I'm going to ask you to open it up.
Sure, and as opposed to old, I love the word seasoned. I think we're in seasoned media, I would say, right? Or traditional. I think that absolutely. I've been with CBS for 17 years now, so has it changed? Absolutely. Exponentially, I think that in the sense of social media, obviously, anyone and everyone, I look out into the crowd right now and I all see a lot of foreheads because everyone's on something, on a device. And it's almost an extension of our hands now. So definitely it has changed where everything also is so immediate and fast. Before, you would issue press releases. It would take a little while. We used typewriters a while ago, so seasoned typewriters. Now we're on computers, but everything I would say right now is much more immediate, and regardless if it is factually accurate. Sometimes that's something where it just doesn't matter if it's true. So many times in media, someone wants to be first. And I think that that's what has really changed more so than anything, that we have to just keep up with it. It's a beast that needs to be fed. It is no longer like, oh, we have to wait until the 6 o'clock news or the 11 o'clock news. It is immediate. And I think it's almost the first thing that everyone, when you wake up, it's the first thing you look at. It's the first thing that you check. You can't even watch a film any longer without seeing a screen. You know, I want to tweet about it. I want to Facebook. I want to tell everyone. That's the other thing that I think that is really changed remarkably since I've started in the business that I'm in.
I mean, certainly the speed is something that I was talking to some of my colleagues and thinking, you used to have to call the library, right? Yes. And they would help you locate a person. And so you'd be I'm like, what did I do all day? I was like sitting there, I don't know what I was doing. So that's definitely a challenge. I also think it's exciting because there is an immediacy that never used to exist, and that goes both ways. So where I see a real change, you used to just, you'd publish the newspaper, and you would have, I mean, the way you would hear from or interact with readers would be, you know, at one time really, just letters to the editor. Or even when I was first starting out at the Washington Post a long time ago, they still had printed, you know, they wrote down messages on a piece of paper, and you'd have to go up to the operator, right, to get that message. And now, where I think the new landscape can be exciting is that you can talk to people more directly, you can hear from them. You can also find out more about people, but yes, the speed is an issue, right? So you have to make sure that you're accurate. It's good to be first if you're accurate, but I think that, and certainly this week has shown that sorting through what's true, what's not true, what's rumor, what's responsible, sensitivity to the repercussions of making a mistake or overstating or understating information is a challenge, as is some of the interaction you get back from readers that might not be as pleasant, right? So for example, every single story we wrote about the San Bernardino case, we had to make sure was pre-moderated because we knew immediately what kind of comments we're going to get. And so there's a difference between sort of a constructive conversation and questions about an issue and really hate speech. So I think like trying to figure out where that, you know, where it's valuable to sort of have that conversation, an honest conversation about people's questions and misunderstandings, and where that veers into something that just kind of pollutes what you're trying to report responsibly. So that's a pretty significant change.
I remember finding myself in Silicon Valley in the 90s, surrounded by this revolution. And I remember those people that were involved in this idea of this new medium being the one that replaces the old medium. They were driven by this saying, the medium is the message. And they used that to really as a battering ram against traditional media. They wanted to completely replace it. And I think those people didn't realize they didn't realize what they were riding on, because it wasn't just one revolution. It started with multimedia, then it went to the internet and blogs, then it went to social media, and revolution after revolution after revolution. And I think by the time we've come all this way, we're still trying to grapple with what that means. Because if you look at the system that we're in now, I mean, if you put all your faith in this, in social media, for example, there's multiple paradoxes at play. So, for example, it's much easier to put out sensationalist or violent or agitating themes than peaceful ones or moderate ones. It's just that the internet favors extreme speech. And that's something that we have, it's not a level playing field. So when, for example, when people talk about the extremist speech versus the moderate speech, well, they have a leg up, right? Second thing is that people's attention spans have been driven to tweet length, right? So how do you encapsulate big ideas into small bits of information? I mean, we used to call that poetry, actually, and it can be considered that as well. I mean, if we really do it right. But I mean, attention spans have gotten so small, and long form journalism, it's harder to do that. But what you're finding also is that what are people tweeting? What are people posting on Facebook? They're posting journalism. They're posting articles. They're posting the traditional stuff they used to bash, right? And over the course of 10, 15 years, had devalued it to nothing. They don't want to pay for it, but it actually constitutes the content that drives billion-dollar valuations of companies. So this is the big paradox. It emerged to trash traditional journalism, but it's completely based now on it. And now you're starting to see even like long form, as the dust settles, as people try to figure out how to manage this new medium, you're finding solid journalism coming back in things like in even BuzzFeed, HuffPo, Intercept, things like that. People are actually starting to do much more traditional long form journalism again. I feel like we've come full circle, but we're still in the middle of that revolution. And this still has not shaken out yet. If people think that we've encountered all of the turbulence, people 10 years were saying that. I guarantee you that's not the case now. So I think what we need to do is go back to basics, right? And people are really starting to ask ourselves, okay, maybe the medium is not the message. Maybe the medium is the message. I mean, the message is the message. Maybe we have to start going back to storytelling. It's back to what is truly moving people. And this has now been democratized, where people can do this. People can tell stories in a tweet, right? This has been the year of the Muslim hashtag. I mean, Muslims have embraced that medium to tell stories, to influence the media, and things like that. And so, we've just started down this journey, and collectively as a society, I don't know where it'll end up, but I'm hoping that it's going to end in a place where we do truly all understand each other and know each other better. Right now it's hard because there's hostility. It's a horrible place to be if you are a woman. It's a horrible place to be if you are somebody who people are not familiar with. It's very difficult if you're a Muslim. But I do think these things will pass as we mature, as we figure out how to balance this out, and as the majority of us realize the opportunity that we have to project on these spaces in the way that the first adopters, many of them whom were the extreme kind of people, did, right? So I'm hopeful.
So am I. One thing that I would like to say, that a lot of times I think that when we talk about negative comments or that negativity wins, I feel that people feel that they're 10 feet tall behind a device, behind a computer, behind a phone, whatever that it is, that you can say whatever you want because you don't physically have to deal with the ramifications of talking to someone face to face. Another thing, when we talk about that negativity sometimes wins, not all the time, because I'm an eternal optimist. One of the things, when you ask someone, hey, how are you doing? And they say, I'm doing great. No one ever asks how great. They're just like, oh, that's great. What else is going on? It's one of those things where if you say, oh, how are you doing? And, oh, well, my toe hurts and I'm sick. We can talk about that all over and over and over again, similar to what happens online where that discussion can feed itself. You can find that misery that loves company very easily.
Thank you.